Some manga entertain you, some manga move you, but Vagabond changes you. This is the story of how Takehiko Inoue turned the legend of Miyamoto Musashi into one of the most beautiful and inspiring works of art in manga history, and why, even unfinished, Vagabond still pushes people to live with discipline, purpose, and beauty. When you talk about legendary mangas, certain names always come up. Naruto, One Piece, Berserk, Dragon Ball. These are the series that shaped generations. But among manga fans, there's another title spoken almost in reverence, Vagabond. Created by Takehiko Inoue, the same artist behind Slam Dunk, Vagabond began serialization in 1998. It adapts Eiji Yoshikawa's epic novel Musashi, a fictionalized account of Japan's greatest swordsman, Miyamoto Musashi. Calling Vagabond just an adaptation doesn't do it justice. It's not only the story of Musashi's jewels, it's a meditation on life itself, on discipline, growth, and the search for meaning through struggle. Inoue begins by following the structure of Yoshikawa's novel very closely, but as the series progresses, it grows into something uniquely his own. His storytelling merges seamlessly with his art, creating a version of Musashi's journey that feels both timeless and deeply personal. Inoue's panels don't just look good, they look like paintings. Brushstrokes, ink washes, landscapes that feel alive. Some pages of Vagabond wouldn't look out of place in an art museum. So what is it about Vagabond that makes it stand out? Why does it inspire people to better themselves? And why has it been left unfinished, on hiatus for a decade? Vagabond follows Miyamoto Musashi, one of the most famous figures in Japanese history, a swordsman, strategist, and philosopher. But in Vagabond, we don't start with the wise warrior. We start with a reckless young man, brute chasing strength for strength's sake. Musashi begins as Takezo Shinman, violent, selfish, hungry for glory. Through battles, through failures, through pain, he slowly transforms. Every duel is more than a fight, it's a lesson. Every defeat forces him to reflect. Every victory feels empty until he understands what it means to live with purpose. This is where the story becomes something special. It's not just about becoming strong, it's about becoming whole. Musashi's path is the path of discipline. He doesn't fight for riches or fame. He fights to strip away his own ego, to discover what lies at the heart of mastery. For readers, this resonates deeply because it's not just Musashi's story, it's ours. Who hasn't felt lost, undisciplined, unsure of their purpose? Who hasn't had to struggle to grow? And I think this hits even harder for today's generation. Whether we realize it or not, our sense of free will feels like it's shrinking. We live in a constant loop of consumption, endless scrolling, endless streaming, endless distractions. Everything around us is automated, optimized to keep us comfortable, to keep us passive. But Vagabond stands in sharp contrast to that. Musashi's world is one where nothing is handed to you. Every step forward has to be earned. Every moment of growth comes through pain, discipline, and action. Even the smallest things, cutting wood, planting rice, practicing a single stroke of the sword, carry meaning because they're done with intention. Reading this manga is almost a reminder. Life isn't about consuming endlessly, it's about doing, about shaping yourself through struggle instead of letting the world shape you through convenience. When you read Vagabond, you feel that call to push yourself harder, to live with more intention, to accept suffering as part of the path. One of the reasons it inspires so many readers is how honestly it depicts the cost of greatness. Musashi doesn't just fight enemies, he fights himself, his doubts, his fears, his arrogance. There's a moment where Musashi realizes he's been chasing strength the wrong way. The true mastery isn't about crushing others, it's about self-mastery, about learning to be disciplined in every action. From how you hold your sword to how you live your life. That's why Vagabond is so powerful. It doesn't give you cheesy motivational speeches. It doesn't preach, it shows. It shows the blood, the loneliness, the endless repetition of training. It shows how Musashi learns to cut wood, to plant rice, to live simply. That discipline isn't just about the battlefield, it's about every part of life. Readers often say that after reading the manga, they felt inspired to work harder, to study with more focus, to approach their own craft, whether it's art, writing, coding, anything, with the same seriousness Musashi brings to the sword. In a way, Vagabond is like a guide to self improvement, but instead of bullet points and self help slogans, it gives you Musashi's journey, a raw, painful, beautiful reminder that discipline isn't about being perfect, it's about striving every single day. You can't talk about Vagabond without talking about its art. Takehiko Inoue's drawings aren't just manga panels, they're works of art in their own right. Early in his career with Slam Dunk, Inoue was already known for his strong, expressive line work. That series had energy, movement, and emotion, but it was still firmly rooted in the style of commercial shonen manga. Clean lines, G-pens inking, dynamic but conventional. With Vagabond, it took things to an entirely different level. He started with the same G-pen technique, but after a few chapters, he made a bold shift. Inoue began working with brush techniques inspired by traditional Japanese ink paintings. The change was transformative. Suddenly, the pages carried a new gravity. Wide, sweeping strokes capture entire landscapes. Fine, deliberate lines etched deep emotions into faces. Every brush mark had weight. Inoue found a way to balance silence and motion, stillness and violence, in a way that few manga ever have. Just look at that panel of Musashi staring directly at the reader. It forces you to stop, to linger, to stare back into those eyes. It isn't just a drawing, it's a confrontation, a demand to be present in the moment. There are panels where you can feel the wind moving through the grass, panels where you can hear the silence of the mountains, and panels where Musashi's loneliness, his hunger, his determination bleeds through without a single word of dialogue. This is the kind of art you'd expect to see hanging in a gallery, not tucked away in the pages of a comic volume. And yet, that's exactly what makes Vagabond so special. It takes the medium of manga, so often dismissed as, just a comic, and shows that it can rival the greatest works of visual art. Here's the beautiful parallel. Inoue's artistic evolution mirrors Musashi's journey. Musashi begins as raw strength and brute force, a wild swordsman swinging for survival. Over time, he refines himself, learning discipline, subtlety, and control. Inoue does the same. From the sharp J-pen lines of his early chapters, he evolves into brushwork that breathes with nuance and restraint. The art itself embodies Musashi's growth, from chaos to mastery. In fact, much of Inoue's later style draws directly from sumi-e, the Japanese tradition of ink wash paintings. In sumi-e, a single brushstroke can capture the essence of a mountain, a wave, or a blade of grass. It's about simplicity, economy, and presence, creating depth and feeling with the fewest lines possible. Inoue channels the same philosophy. His panels don't just depict Musashi's world, they evoke it. They feel alive in the way great ink paintings do. For many readers, simply flipping through Vagabond is enough to inspire awe. It's not just storytelling, it's not just illustration, it's visual philosophy. Art that makes you feel, reflect, and even change. The manga didn't come out of nowhere. It's based on Musashi, a 1935 novel by Eiji Yoshikawa. Yoshikawa's book is itself a retelling, a historical novel that dramatized the life of Miyamoto Musashi, bleeding facts, folklore, and fiction. For decades, it was the definitive version of Musashi's legend. Takehiko Inoue takes this foundation and transforms it. Where Yoshikawa tells an epic, Inoue tells an intimate story. Where the novel paints Musashi as a legendary hero, Vagabond paints him as a flawed man, stumbling his way towards enlightenment. This difference is crucial. Reading Vagabond doesn't feel like reading history. It feels like reading someone's diary, their soul laid bare through ink and brush. The result is a manga that's not only faithful to the spirit of Musashi's legend, but also deeply human in a way that resonates with modern readers. Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Vagabond is unfinished. The series has been on hiatus since 2015. For a decade, fans have been waiting for a conclusion. Why? Takehiko Inoue himself has spoken about it. He struggled with burnout, with pressure, with his own relationship to the story. He said he didn't want to force an ending that wasn't true. And while many fans feel frustrated, there's also something strangely fitting about this. Musashi's journey was never really about the end. It was about the path. Even unfinished, Vagabond feels complete in a way. Because the lessons are already there. The beauty, the discipline, the philosophy, they live in every chapter we already have. Maybe that's the ultimate lesson of Vagabond, that the journey matters more than the destination, that an unfinished masterpiece can still inspire, still move, and still change lives. So why does Vagabond inspire people to be better? Because it shows us what discipline really means, not just fighting duels, but fighting yourself. Not just chasing victory, but chasing meaning. Because its art reminds us that beauty isn't confined to galleries or museums. It can live in the pages of a manga, in ink strokes that capture silence better than words ever could. Because it connects us to something timeless. The legend of Musashi, reshaped by Yoshikawa, reimagined by Inoue, still is speaking to us today. Even on hiatus, Vagabond is a masterpiece, a meditation on life, on growth, on walking a path of purpose. And maybe that's why it doesn't need an ending. Because the lesson isn't about how the story closes. It's about how you carry it with you when you put the book down. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far in the video. If this video made you think, leave a like, subscribe, and share your favorite Vagabond moments in the comments. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be right back.